Time once again for the exclusive film and video report. This is Ghosty, and sitting across from me is James Rana. We are a study in fashion contrasts.
Really?
You're dressed like Johnny Cash for some reason.
I am wearing a black tuxedo.
Yeah. I don't know exactly. Are you planning on strumming a country ditty after this is over? Or?
That I'm going to have some alcohol problems.
Are you wearing that for the oppressed?
Yes.
I think he had drug problems more than alcohol.
Drug problems.
The late George Jones.
The late George. I know.
There's your alcohol problems right there.
I loved George Jones.
And I'm wearing
something you found in the back of a...
Something I found in a Goodwill truck. Anyway, you're listening to the exclusive film and video report.
Woodshed.
Woodshed?
That's a famous line that was badly dubbed in a little in a sequel to what we're talking about.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Listen, we're talking about The Evil Dead. I saw the remake of The Evil Dead.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Have you seen the ads and the reviews? And I mean, maybe not the reviews, but the ads have been the scariest movie you'll ever see. I kept hearing all these great things about it, that it was almost an improvement on the original, and that it was different. It was unlike all the other remakes, because there have been so many of them. You know, they're basically remaking movies from the 80s and 90s. If you notice, they're not remaking movies from the 50s and 60s anymore.
No.
They gave up on that. I think the last one was that shot-for-shot version of Psycho.
Which was horrible.
Which is horrible.
I mean, why get a shot-to-shot version when you can just rent the original?
Right, exactly.
In black and white.
And so, you know, now they remade Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween,
that was terrible.
Atrocious. They remade Friday the 13th. They did Nightmare on Elm Street. I loved the original Evil Dead.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I loved the trilogy of Evil Dead movies. And I go to see this thing, and I'm hearing all these great things. Well, you know, Sam Raimi, he took great care to make sure that this wasn't a cookie-cutter remake like all the other ones we've seen. And, you know, it wasn't entertaining. It was exactly like all those other ones, where it looked like they got a bunch of kids from the WB.
Yeah.
Those kind of shows like Gilmore Girls and Dawson's Creek, those shows seem to just spit out future actors who would appear in horror movie remakes, you know, like Kerr Smith. You know, you'd never see him in anything, but he would be in the My Bloody Valentine in 3D remake, you know. And this is kind of the same deal. What kills me is that it made a fortune.
Yeah, it was number one of the bottom.
So I'm assuming that there are people who don't know about the Evil Dead movies, and this is always the argument against remakes, that they don't know about the original, and they went to the theater, and as far as they're concerned, this is the Evil Dead. Like when they went to see the Friday the 13th remake, they probably had no idea about the previous movies. And I know some people will say, well, that's not true. How could they not know? It's part of our culture.
Well,
believe me, the current generation, so damn dumb that they probably have no concept of anything that happened pre-2005.
Let me explain one little thing. A friend of mine, who's a few years younger than me, very intelligent woman, she's going to Harvard, when the Star Trek remake came out,
right?
She went with her boyfriend. You know what she says to me? I didn't know there were other Star Trek films.
Oh, God. Well, we've talked about this before, you know, especially when it comes to showing older films to young people today, the outright hostility.
You know,
this is just be called I Hate Kids.
It's really bad. It's embarrassing. But I just want to remind a story that you told me years and years ago, how you were like a kid and your mother rented The Evil Dead.
Yes, and I was terrified. This is when VHS first came out.
I remember, yeah.
And I remember thinking this was the scariest movie I ever saw,
It's
The Evil Dead.
It's a frightening movie.
And
it's wonderful.
And I own it now, of course, but at the time I was so terrified of. To me, it was like Faces of Death. It was we don't even want this in the house. You know, get this out of here. It's evil. The tape itself is evil. And then I was telling all my friends about it, because some friends had seen it.
Yeah.
And some friends hadn't seen it. And I had my one friend from high school, Jim, I was telling him, because he didn't like horror movies.
Yeah.
His thing was horror movies were never scary to him. He always thought they were just kind of dumb. And I said, no. Trust me on this. Evil Dead, the most frightening film you'll ever see. I was petrified by this movie. We go to see the sequel, which is essentially a remake, but now it's a comedy.
I know. There's some little funny moments, but yeah, it was a little weird.
And I remember thinking, as I'm sitting in the theater going, I've just told my friend Jim, I've told him that this is going to be the scariest movie. And he's sitting there laughing. He must think I'm a dope. So for a little while, I didn't like Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Like, I was disappointed because I wanted something just as terrifying as the first movie, and instead it became a comedy. And then after you see it a few times, you get the joke and everything. And by that point, I started to love it. And then Army of Darkness came out.
It's
and
wonderful.
That's the one where really I knocked my socks off.
But you know what? Here's the thing about you can't make a remake of a film like The Evil Dead without Bruce Campbell. The movie is Bruce Campbell.
You can't. And the substitute for Bruce Campbell in this movie is no substitute at all. I couldn't tell you. I can't even. This is how nebulous this whole thing is. I can't even picture the guy's face in my mind. I just saw the movie. It hasn't even been a week, and I just saw the movie. I can't even picture the actor's face. Let's just briefly talk about the career of Bruce Campbell, because there was a serious lack of BC in this Evil Dead remake. Bruce Campbell, of course, went on to do tremendous TV shows that were not successful but have tremendous cult status.
Briscoe County Jr.
The Adventures of Briscoe County
Wonderful.
Jr., which unfortunately, I mean, it's on DVD, which is great, but it's like $80 for this series, which is ridiculous. It's
Does
like
he do
only
the commentary?
I think he does do a little commentary. I'm waiting for that thing to get marked down, to like $20. See it over at Best Buy. And another one of my great favorite TV shows of the 90s or the early 2000s, Jack of All Trades.
You really like that show?
I love that show
because
Bruce Campbell is doing Bob Hope from the 40s.
That's true.
I've never seen a TV show where the actor is doing The Princess and the Pirate. Have you ever seen that movie with Bob Hope and Virginia Mayo? He's doing that for the entire. His delivery's exactly the same. I'd get Fangoria or any of these magazines, and they'd have articles on it because it's Bruce Campbell. And nowhere in there would they say, "Oh, he's doing Bob Hope." And meanwhile, I'm sitting here going, how can you not see this? I can only just assume that people have no memory of anything pre-1983.
I highly recommend, I know you have read it also, his book, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor.
Oh, yeah,
If Chins Could Kill, is wonderful.
Well, now he's on Burn Notice, which is the big... I've never seen a single episode of it.
He put on some weight.
Did he really?
Yeah,
well, listen, he's getting up there, He did that movie, I always mention My Name is Bruce, which was a great concept for a movie, but the execution wasn't all that great. Basically it was a bunch of kids come into some real horror, and so they decide to go after Bruce Campbell, the actor, thinking that the only person that could help them, because he's killed zombies before in movies.
And he's completely useless. Bubba Hotep, where he plays Elvis.
Bubba Hotep, that's really his big movie, I think. That's one that's a cult movie, but
him and
Ozzie Davis. God bless him. Anyway, he was sorely missing.
No cameo?
I don't want to say. Should I tell? Listen, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. If anyone's listening to this and you haven't seen the movie, all right. You have to sit through the end credits, which go on forever. And then at the very end, the screen darkens and we get literally 6 seconds of Bruce Campbell in profile. Then he turns to the camera and he goes, groovy. If only Bruce Campbell could make a cameo during the film and video report, I think it would save these. We would get more views on YouTube. But I'll tell you this, Bruce Campbell, great. Any of his films, even The Man with the Screaming Brain,
that was terrible,
are worth watching. But I think we're going to rename this segment I Hate Kids. So make sure next week to listen to I Hate Kids with Ghosty and James Rana. No, we're kidding.
Can you say the last line that Bruce says?
Groovy.
Thank you.